Our correspondent Meghna Dev is covering these stories and following them closely. She joins us from Rio de Janeiro now. Meghna, to what extent, has this summit set the stage for India taking over the chair of an expanded BRICS grouping?
Yes, when we actually see that India's priorities for the BRICS very closely align to what Brazil's priorities are, especially when we are talking about bringing to the fore the concerns of the global south. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his statements, in his interventions at sessions, has clearly indicated that especially about two things. First, that now token gestures are not going to be acceptable for the global south countries. He also said that it's not that the decision-making process can be done. He said that the decision-making process cannot be done without representation or at the table of the global south. Now, what we also clearly are seeing is that President Lula has also talked about how it is important for the global south to have a representation on the horseshoe table. He's told that the Caribbean, the Latin America, Africa needs to have a representation there. Besides, also concerns of the global south in terms of debt servicing, in terms of interoperability of use of national currencies for trade and economy, bringing up MSMEs, talking about climate financing, talking also, in terms of small, medium enterprises. These are some of the important agendas that aligns clearly with India's priorities also for the global south. So this clearly sets the tone for India taking up the BRICS chair. And but clearly, when we do see that these were also the priorities when we're talking about the G20. India did bring up the global south issues at the G20 as well, and Brazil carried it on with its G20 presidency. And now it's the other way around, that Brazil's G20 priorities about global governance and reforms, UNSC reforms, and all these things clearly aligning with India's agendas. And India, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, India will give a new direction and new definition to the BRICS under its presidency.
Also, Meghna, how does the BRICS declaration reaffirm India's position on terrorism and, reform of global governance as well?
Well, Mark, very importantly, we have been speaking to people around here, also other journalists who are covering the BRICS summit very closely. They did also tell us that the kind of push, the kind of strong statement that has come out in the declaration, the paragraph, clearly speaks volumes of the strong condemnation that India has been able to achieve. It's a very big diplomatic win for India to achieve this kind of consensus in terms of condemning the attack in Kashmir. Clearly, it's a big message to the neighbors. It's a big message when we are talking about terror financing. We're talking about providing safe haven to terrorists. We're talking about cross-border terrorism. These words clearly indicate a big message for the neighbors to understand that there are going to be strict actions taken, and the world is united, especially when we're talking here about the BRICS countries. They're united against terrorism. They're united on the stance of combating terrorism. So very strong statement and a big diplomatic victory for India in terms of ensuring that the dastardly attack in Kashmir gets a prominent notice amidst the BRIC nations at this BRICS summit. And when we're talking about governance also, we're talking about UNSC reforms also. Clearly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that, the world's constantly transforming. And in this situation, the UN, which is taking decisions, making different policies, talking about solutions for the world, has not gone transformation in 80 years, in 8 decades.
Yes,
so clearly,
exactly.
The urgent need for reforms is something that is required.
Yes, Meghna.
And Mark, if you see the language that was used, clearly indicates the strong stance, the strong words that were used, that now the global south is not in a mood of having too much patience for these reforms.
Also, Meghna, the Prime Minister has been holding lots of bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the summit. Now, how do these fit in with the broader theme, of the Prime Minister's 5-nation tour, South-South cooperation?
Very importantly, I'll just give you a short brief in terms of the Prime Minister's engagements in Latin America in the recent past. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, outreach to Latin America has enhanced in a manner, in a sense, India reaching out to the world. We saw the incoming visit of the President of Chile in April 2025. Then we did see that the President of Paraguay was here in June 2025. There was outgoing visit of Prime Minister to Guyana in November 2024. Then Prime Minister attended the India CARICOM Summit. Now we see the visit to Trinidad and Tobago, then visit to Argentina. Now the state visit to Brazil is going to happen after 6 decades, about 57 years. This Prime Minister is paying a state visit to Brazil. So that is very significant. And obviously, the bilateral with Mexico happened in, on the sidelines of G7. There was also now the bilaterals happened with Cuba, Bolivia, and Uruguay. So clearly paints a picture of how India is reaching out with countries of Latin America, the kind of importance India attaches, especially in talks in sectors of technology, talks in sector of digital public infrastructure, talks in sectors of critical minerals. With Brazil, we talks about biofuels, agriculture, livestock, and R&D,
Yes.
science and technology. So these are important sectors that India is exploring, and Prime Minister's constant visits, incoming, outgoing visits of from and to Latin America definitely make these bonds, cement these bonds, and make it even more stronger.
Meghna Dev in Rio de Janeiro, thanks very much for joining us.